powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to the Science Edit, the podcast that breaks down the trickiest parts of science and helps you get it right when it matters most. I'm Miss Lima, and I'm here to support you with the science you need when you need it. Whether you're revising for exams, exploring future careers, or just trying to figure out why your last test didn't go so well, you're in the right place. Let's dive into our next episode. Today's episode is all about what it really takes to apply for medicine or veterinary science. I'm joined by 3 students who just finished their A-levels and have been through the whole process. Applications, interviews, exams, and everything in between. Gentlemen, hi. So we've got Morgan here and Freddie. You've both been accepted for medical school for next year. And Ed, you've got multiple offers for veterinary science. Thank you for joining me today.
That's all right, Miss. You're welcome.
Thank you. I guess the obvious question to start is, when did you first seriously start thinking about pursuing a medically based career?
Probably end of year 11, to be fair. It's different for everyone. It doesn't have to be something that you've always wanted to do, and it doesn't have to be something that you've, got in line the whole time. All you've got to be is absolutely 100% sure that it's what you want to do, because you can't do it halfway.
End of year 11 though is quite late, isn't it? Is there anything that you found, because you only had 2 years, and even then that's the busy years with your A-levels, that you had to really focus on to make sure that you were ready for that medicine application?
Yeah, but I mean, that's the same for everyone. It is a hassle and it is stressful, and you're not going to know what you want to do and what you're going to do the whole time. I still don't know what part of medicine I want to do, and you don't have to.
I think that's important. I think it's about making sure you keep doors open as well. So if you're not sure, then making sure, I'll keep my options open. But the A-level choices obviously are kind of dictated, aren't they, in terms of what your subject you need, chemistry and biology. So what about your third subject? How did you choose that?
I know for me and Ed, we did maths and English lit for a third and fourth subject. But I think for most medical schools, I don't think the third one is too much of a priority. As long as you have the biology and chemistry, which is pretty standard across all of them, I think that's mainly fine.
Yeah, I mean, the offer that I've put as my first one pertained particularly to the chemistry and biology grades. And then again, it was that third one that I took English because I really enjoyed it, but then I also took maths because I thought, maybe that's something that they'll look for, and again will stand you in good stead compared to other people applying. Yeah,
I mean, also you've got to think, the subjects that you are choosing, you need to make sure you're aiming for those A-star grades. How focused on those were you in terms of grades all the way through year 12, for example?
I think during year 12, I was very focused on getting that A-star across the predicted grades. And I think I was on track for that in year 12, going into year 13 as well. But I think mainly for most medical schools, it is usually that triple A is the most important.
I think it is important to remember that, because obviously with medicine, veterinary medicine, there's so many hurdles to jump through on top of the grades. But it's important to remember, at the end of the day, those grades are what's going to get you there. So it is really important to always have that sort of as number one priority, I think.
Okay, well, obviously we've got the whole question of the UCAT. So just what was that like? Morgan and Freddie, you obviously been through that. So what was it like, and how did you prepare for it?
It was the absolute hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, by far.
I didn't actually expect you to say that.
The interviews were so much easier because they're subjective, and it's okay to make a mistake in an interview because they know that you're a person, but the UCAT doesn't care, and it's just all about numbers and speed. It's unlike a test that you will ever do in your entire life because it's so geared towards how fast you can do things, not whether you're any good at them. It's a reading comprehension. I can do a reading comprehension, but you give me 20 seconds to do it and then I can't do it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely different bits of the UCAT that I found easier than others. So the situational judgment was definitely my strong suit, as well as the decision making. But things like the verbal reasoning with the comprehension in 10 seconds, that was very difficult for me.
Did you know, as you were going through that, did you know this is going well?
I think it was completely up in the air. I could not know at different points. I was very confused at some points whether I was doing quite well or not at all.
And what about preparation for that? I mean, what can you do? I mean, obviously you said it's difficult. They do release pre-release material that you can practice, but is there any other things that are useful to prepare for that?
It just takes practice. I mean, there are things like Medify and MedEntry, which you pay money for. I wouldn't recommend getting a tutor because the UCAT's a very personal thing. Like Morgan alluded to, you're going to have things that you're good at and things that you're bad at. I was really good at abstract reasoning, which isn't a thing anymore, and I was terrible at verbal reasoning. So you need to basically gear all your time and effort towards what you're good at to maximize your score, and a tutor won't help you do that. So I would say get a Medify or MedEntry and just do practice questions over and over and over and over again so that you know what works for you.
Sure. I mean, obviously, alongside that, you've got your application that you need to put in with your personal statement. What kind of things were you including in your personal statement that you think gave you an edge?
Definitely a lot of work experience. I know that I put a personal anecdote in my work experience as well. And I think reflecting on what I did was really key and beneficial to my application.
Yeah, I found that it's all, well and good having all this work experience, but really reflecting on it and saying, things you learned or things that you went off and researched as a result of that, things you found interesting. That's the real key stuff. That also cropped up in interviews as well. I found that was what they were really interested in.
What about the actual universities that you chose to apply for? Were you quite selective with that? Did you apply to a different range of universities?
Yeah, just go to the open days and pick the ones you like. It's the same as any other course. You just need to get a feel for the unis. I chose King's because I just loved it so much and I loved the location and I wanted to be in London. And then I chose Newcastle because it had lower entry requirements and I liked it. But, you need to, understand King's was A-star AA entry requirements. You need to understand that you need a backup. And there's no point picking a backup that's also A-star AA because you're not going to get in.
Yeah, and then... Sorry, go on.
I was just saying, in terms of vet schools, I suppose it's similar to medicine in some ways, but also because there's only, I think, I'm correct in saying there's about 12 in the UK. There's obviously so much fewer. And as a result of that, the courses themselves really differ quite significantly in how they're taught. So I think another thing to look at is the way the teaching's done, because, that style of teaching, you can have it for 5 years or whatever. That's something that you really need to pay attention to, what's going to suit you, what's going to help you learn best, basically.
Just sticking with the whole idea of the veterinary school, obviously work experience plays a massive part of that. So what kind of work experience did you do? And was it really difficult to get onto that?
So there's a lot of talk about how difficult it is to get veterinary work experience at the moment, which I do think is true. I was very fortunate to do a week at a veterinary hospital just through an online application there, and luckily it was very local to me. But I'm sure, there are lots of vet practices around, and unfortunately I think the thing you just have to do is, put out as many things as you can trying to find anywhere. But the hospital was really good because then I saw surgeries and I saw consultations. In terms of other stuff, I also spent a week working at a farm, and again that was good because I'd never really been in that environment, and there will obviously be applicants who've grown up with horses or grown up on farms. So really the best thing to do, I think, is get a range, and that's what they're after. And again, like I said before, reflecting on what you saw there, what things interested you, what you went off and researched as a result of that.
Yeah, what about for medical school? Obviously, it's equally as difficult to try and get some work experience. So what did you do? And do you think it really helped give you an edge?
I think a lot of medical work experience is about who you know at what time. And I think definitely I benefited from that. But I think for many people, they just applied through the NHS website and just applied anywhere they could. And I think many people had to keep pressuring them because they do have a lot of emails. So I think my advice for people who are trying to get medical work experience is just keep asking, keep going, because they will get to you at some point.
I would say as well, for anything, dentistry, vet med, or just medicine, do volunteering because it's easier to get.
Good, yeah.
And they care more about it, I'd say, because it's about showing commitment as well as getting experience. So I volunteered at Maidstone Mencap, whereas, and there's all sorts of places you can volunteer as a porter in the NHS and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think that volunteering is also interesting because, just a specific example, Bristol, where I applied, they talked about actually work experience, because it is so hard to find. They don't really discriminate applicants based on how much work experience, but they like to see, like you said, just volunteering experience, any jobs you might have, working in a cafe, whatever it might be, to give you those skills that, will give you an edge, even if you can't get, animal-related work experience.
Yeah, so you've been through all of that with your UCAT and your applications, and then you get to interview. So when do you get your interviews through? How did you prepare for those?
I think I got my interview offer around January time of my application. And I think when I was preparing for it, I saw a lot online about the kind of typical questions of why do you want to come to this university? What skills do you have? And more about personal questions as well. And when I got to my interview, it was completely different from what I was expecting. It was none of those simple questions. So I think definitely come prepared with those typical questions, but also be expecting for the unexpected in those situations.
Did they ask you technical questions, like biology, chemistry-based questions, like subject-based questions?
For my one, it was rare. They asked more about interpretation of data rather than specific course knowledge, so I think that was quite useful.
I think it varies by uni as well, and by the school you're applying to, because some will have a more scientific basis, and they were much more in depth, whereas others, again, like you said, it was more about data interpretation and application and things. So I think it really depends. They really differ from university to university.
I did 3 interviews. I did one online MMI, one like in-person MMI at Newcastle, and then a panel one at Cambridge. If you're applying to Cambridge or Oxford, the questions are all about science. It's all about what you know, and they don't expect you to know it, but they will push you in the right direction. The MMIs can throw up some really random things, but there's also some very like constant things, such as I'm sure Morgan probably had a role play type thing where they asked you to break bad news to someone. I had one where I had to sort out a conflict within a team as well. So you can find the questions online, and I would suggest that you get a friend who also is like-minded. Me and Ed did this together, and just get on a FaceTime call pretty much every night and just ask each other questions.
I think that really helps, because asking yourself the questions is good, but it's really different experience having someone else, looking at you and listening to you as you're answering them, and being able to voice that back to someone, I think is really the best thing you can do for it.
It puts the pressure on you as well. Because like in an interview, if you fumble around with your words, you've got to take a step back and just breathe and go again.
Yeah, that's right. That's really useful. What about anything else that you did for your application that made it stand out? Is there anything in particular you're thinking, you know what, I think that gave me the edge?
I think for me, I did a lot of tutoring and kind of a lot of volunteering in like food banks and that kind of thing to improve my people skills. That's something they really like in the role play, in the acting scenarios, and definitely helps you in the interview. So I know that when I was doing a lot of tutoring for younger students in the school, not only did that help me kind of work around and how to work with younger people, different types of people, but it also gave me something quite unique to talk about in my interviews. I don't know about what you guys thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think also keeping an eye on the news constantly, current affairs, that was a huge part of all my interviews, really. And there's obviously new developments in medicine, both veterinary and human, coming out all the time. So really, if you can keep your finger on the pulse, so to speak, with that kind of thing, that'll really stand you in good stead.
In your personal statement as well, use buzzwords, especially for medicine. Like there are certain words like multidisciplinary team that like you'll see in every single personal statement for medicine, and it's because the admissions team will look through your personal statement to find words like that, because they don't have enough time to read your whole personal statement.
So looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so. I mean, it's quite. I think brace yourself would be one, because it is. People talk about how full on it is, but it is a stressful application process, particularly to go through. As I remember doing all my interviews at the time that we had a bunch of exams on as well. So it is full on, and really just be ready for that. But also remind yourself, there is an end goal there, and always keep that in mind. That if you put in the work and you do all these things that are going to benefit you, it's going to pay off long term, hopefully.
I think in the summer between year 12 and year 13, that was probably one of the worst summers I've had, because in year 13, the early entry applications for medicine and vet med as well is very quick in the October, I think. So mocks were first day back, I think. It was very quick. So I think that summer I had to work a lot harder. So I think definitely something to note. There's
only so much you can do to prepare. It sounds like you can just drill it for hours, and you can't. I got a question in one of our interviews that was like, why do we wear shoes? There is absolutely no preparing for that, because you don't know. So
I don't know what I'd say.
Exactly. And so sometimes you just do need to, it's just about, have you got the right stuff, really? Can you talk to people? Can you think on the spot? And, you can work on that, but at the same time, it's about who you are as a person that they want to know about.
We're obviously going to have younger students listening, year 10, year 11. Is there any advice you'd give to them in terms of, like if they're thinking about a career along this way?
Don't close your mind off to doing this, because it's stressful, and I don't want to put you off at all, but it is the hardest thing that you can possibly do. So don't close your mind off and say, I want to be a dentist, because you might get to year 12 and go, actually, I want to do medicine. I want to be a vet.
Yeah.
So don't pick something when you're really young and then try and see it through, because you might waste your time.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think also being proactive about it. obviously you might be lucky in your school to have people that are supporting you, but also you've got to put in the work yourself to find the opportunities to do the reading, whatever it may be. And that really comes down to you. And like I said, I think the earlier you start, or just generally the more stuff you do, it puts you at an advantage. So really, take control of your application early and just, really give yourself the best chance.
Finally, how are you feeling now it's all over?
Not quite out of the woods yet, because it's not results day yet, and if that doesn't swing our way, then we're gonna have to do it all over again.
Ask me that question in a couple of months.
Well, can I just say to all three of you, thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that there's going to be some really useful tips that you've given to students in year 12 that's going to really help them going forward, so thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Miss.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
having us.
Thank you.
And really, to all three of you, good luck.